What would you answer if we asked you whether people in the Middle Ages thought the earth was round? Most likely you would say that back then, under the influence of the church, the planet was believed to be flat. Because of this, Columbus ended up in America instead of Asia, and dissenters like Galileo were burned at the stake. It's hard to blame you for this. Many mainstream media often express a similar point of view. Sometimes it is even taught in schools. But these stories have nothing to do with reality. In fact, the Catholic Church believed the earth was round. The only question was whether the sun revolved around the earth, or the other way around. There are many such historical inaccuracies and misunderstandings, even in the modern world. We will talk about them in the next few minutes. We will find out whether our ancestors were really short, why Columbus compared the earth to a pear, and whether milk really drove evolution. It will be a lot of fun. But first, let's return to the flat earth. Ask 5 friends who discovered that our planet is round. Most likely, they will name Galileo, Copernicus, or even Columbus, all because of the myth that just 500 years ago, everyone believed the earth was flat. And this is a direct insult to our ancestors. Even in the works of ancient philosophers, who sometimes placed the planet on animal supports, there is no mention of a flat earth. For example, the Indians, who placed the earth on a turtle, surrounded the whole structure with a snake, giving it a spherical shape. The only ancient Greek who mentioned a flat earth was Democritus. But his theory never became dominant. Another Greek, Anaximander, proposed a popular theory of a cylindrical earth. The only inaccuracy in the theory was that, in the ancient Greek model, the earth was static. The sun and all the stars revolved around it. And this is where Galileo enters the scene. But even here, there is a clarification. Galileo was only the third person to claim that the earth revolves around the sun, at least among widely known scientists. The first widely known was Copernicus. In the 16th century, he dedicated a large part of his life to creating a heliocentric model of the world. It turned out beautifully, although it contained some errors. The church did not burn Copernicus. He died of natural causes, because he kept a low profile, and did not shout about his ideas at every corner. The one who started shouting was Giordano Bruno, who is often portrayed as almost a student of Copernicus. In reality, Bruno never positioned himself that way. And he was not much of a scientist. Giordano was an aggressive preacher, and he used Copernicus's theory for his own religious ideas. That is why he was burned. According to Inquisition documents, the charges about the earth revolving around the sun were almost at the very bottom of the list. They did not really matter. When it comes to Galileo, all the common beliefs are false. First, no one burned Galileo. Second, he never said the phrase, "And yet it moves." And third, Galileo himself was a believer. He did not conflict with the church. In fact, he was very upset about trials, and followed the church's decisions. The worst thing the Inquisition did to him was to demand that he publicly renounce his statements about heliocentrism. No one forbade him from continuing his work. They only forbade him from publishing. But until his death, Galileo worked on the idea of the Earth's rotation. And returning to our original topic, about the flat Earth and the so-called Dark Ages, neither Galileo nor the Church ever believed that. The debate was only about rotation, which makes it even funnier that Columbus is dragged into this story. Supposedly, his calculations of the route Asia failed because he assumed the Earth was flat. So instead of Asia, he arrived in America. This, of course, is a lie. that Columbus's main goal was to prove the Earth was round, a work of fiction spread widely. And the final nail in the coffin was driven by Samuel Rowbotham. He wrote a scientific work about the flat Earth, called Zetetic Astronomy. There he described experiments that supposedly proved the Earth was flat. And for good measure, he dragged ancient thinkers into it. But as we have already mentioned, neither they nor the Church ever denied the obvious fact that the planet is round. So, as you can see, the topic of the flat Earth reveals several myths at once. The second topic we want to cover in this video is no less interesting. And before we begin, imagine that you have traveled back to 100,000 BC and met an ancestor of modern humans. Close your eyes and imagine what they looked like. Most likely it will be something ape-like, not very tall, with a hunched back and a small head. Because the famous picture of evolution has firmly implanted an unquestionable truth in many minds. People, as they evolve, become taller. Our brain develops, taking up more space. And our distant ancestors would envy our slender bodies. And of course, this is all nonsense. It only applies to very distant ancestors of humans. And relatively modern Homo sapiens evolve in a spiral. Let's start with height. Many theories claim that future humans will be giants. Because over the last 150 years, the average human height has increased dramatically. This is indeed true. Residents of Russia have grown 10 centimeters in the last 100 years. A similar trend can be seen in official data from the British Army. There, the average height of a recruit increased by a double-digit number of centimeters over 100 years. But the conclusion that people of the past were dwarfs, and that in 200 years we will be 3 meters tall, is a classic example of a hasty generalization. Because it is enough to look into the past. And before we do that, let's ask ourselves a simple question. Imagine we have two people, one modern and one who lived 40,000 years ago. The first sits at a computer and gets food from a supermarket. The second lives in a cave and hunts and gathers for food. From Mother Nature's point of view, which of these two people's physical characteristics matter more? I think the answer is obvious. And the 5 centimeters. This huge decline is easy to explain. Instead of daily physical challenges, people planted fields and waited for food. And that food sometimes suffered from droughts and floods. Even under ideal conditions, it could not compare to the nutrient-rich diet of ancient hunters. Malnutrition became common, and as a result, people's physical strength declined. Of course, the situation varied from region to region, and some places still had giants. Just like 40,000 years ago, there were populations of shorter people. But we are talking about a general trend. It's hard to argue with. Dozens of works have been written about how farming played a nasty trick on humanity. And it's not even about this is far from true. 100,000 years ago, the average human brain was 1,500 cubic centimeters. Today, it is about 1,350. But do not make the mistake of thinking that we have become dumber. Partly, the brain has shrunk because, as mentioned earlier, the size of people's bodies has decreased overall. And secondly, the brain has simply become more efficient. Today, we are smarter than our ancestors. The same pattern applies to our teeth and canines. Wisdom teeth are an evolutionary rudiment. Modern humans no longer need them. But they still grow in many people, out of respect for their ancestors. Yes, right now there is a trend of increasing average height due to better hygiene, nutrition, and living conditions. But this trend is observed only in a tiny slice of human history. And in the big picture, we are still smaller than our ancestors, and much weaker. We will stop here for now. But history has hundreds of similar topics, teeming with prejudice, myths, and legends. For example, milk, often called the driver of evolution, which it is not. Humans only learned to drink milk around 10,000 years ago. Before that, every single person was lactose intolerant. Intolerance continued in populations afterwards. Even today, 1 in 10 people cannot drink milk. We would be happy to cover these topics in the next video, if you enjoy this format. So if you want a continuation, let us know in the comments. And do not forget to hit the like button. See you next time, friends.